Miners, financiers, trade officials and a healthy number of African mining ministers have descended on Perth today for the annual Africa Downunder conference. And I'm joined now from Perth by Robert Edel, who heads up mining and energy at law firm DLA Piper. Robert, welcome to the programme.
Thanks very much.
Can I just follow up on our story there and ask you about the Marikana shooting? I mean, it must be a big topic of conversation at the conference there. What are the concerns? Are they about more militant unionism or more broad-spread political unrest? And would this maybe seep through to other forms of mining?
Unlikely to do that. What's happened there is a tragedy, but the underlying cause is industrial unrest. Industrial unrest is not confined to South Africa, it's common in other parts of the world and other mining jurisdictions. Africa is a very large continent, it has many countries and there are many jurisdictions and destinations for mining investment. So what we're seeing is discussion about the issues there, but the conference is focusing on the whole of Africa. There are nearly 260 Australian companies active in Africa at the moment, many of them in the resources industry. So there are many different destinations for Australian mining investment. The tragedy that's occurred in South Africa is not necessarily going to affect investment in other countries.
So briefly, are companies in South Africa preparing themselves in any way for more militant unionism, do you think, or not?
Yes, I think it's true that they are preparing themselves for that. Whenever you go into an African jurisdiction, careful planning is required to understand the local landscape, the industrial landscape, the investment landscape. And so companies are carefully looking at the nature of the workplace relations landscape there, the fact that it is a highly unionised sector, and making plans accordingly.
More broadly, Rob, that's just one form of risk, I suppose, sovereign risk. When you embark on a project in Africa, what are the most important challenges that you would look at?
Probably the most important challenges are to understand the nature of the legal and regulatory regime that you're facing, including the industrial relations regime. What right do workers have to strike? What disputation and disruption to the business can they cause? The transparency and clarity of the regime that you're dealing with is very important to understanding the risks that are faced by any business. Understanding the nature of the government processes as well. How does government make its decisions? Who are the key decision makers and how quickly does decision making occur are all key things that companies investing in Africa need to understand. Generally, what these companies who are investing in Africa find is that the decision making process is slower and there is a significant investment in time required to understand how those processes work and understand that the process of moving from exploration into production is not necessarily going to be as quick as it might be in other jurisdictions.
Does it help to be a big fella, a Rio Tinto, or is it just as easy to be a Bannerman, a Sundance, a Paladin?
It's just as easy to be one of the smaller players, provided that you've got good local relationships and you understand those processes. So the companies that you mention have done well. They all fluctuate through the share price depending on the location of where they are and according to the share market at any particular time. But provided they have the right local advice and they plan properly, they can do just as well as the majors.
I assume picking your local partner would be absolutely crucial there.
It is absolutely crucial and it runs across the board. Picking your local partner in terms of investment partners in the local jurisdiction, picking local engineers and making sure you've got a really good connection with the local community is usually vital to success in those jurisdictions.
What is the feeling in the market about investment risk and sovereign risk? Because I'm just looking at what happened in Indonesia in the last month with Intrepid Mines. I mean, that was an extraordinary story. Is it very country specific?
Yes, it is very country specific. That's a good point. Africa is a very diverse place and the nature and type of risk varies enormously across the different countries in Africa. Ghana is a very different risk profile to Cote d'Ivoire or Liberia, which is different in turn to Congo and South Africa. All of these countries have different issues that need to be addressed and different risk profiles, and that needs to be taken into account when you're considering an investment there.
Has anything changed, particularly in the iron ore space, given that we're seeing commodity prices, we think that they've peaked now?
I think companies are having a close look at the iron ore price and where the cycle is going to go. That's no surprise. The iron ore price was always going to come off, and it's been predicted by experts in the market for some time. In terms of Africa, though, it has some fabulous resources, it has some very high-grade areas, and it's relatively underexplored compared to other investment destinations in the world. So with the prices coming down, companies need to find value and they need to look for a better value proposition. So that drives them to other parts of the world, and Africa is one of those key areas where they can still extract value because the price they'll pay per tonne for ore in the ground in Africa is typically less, for example, than it would be in Australia.
Finally, China in Africa, does the more, I suppose, controversial reputation of China in Africa play in our favour? What's our reputation out there?
Australia's reputation is very good in Africa. As I said earlier, there are more than 260 companies active. Australian companies have a reputation for being very good at engaging with local stakeholders, for being efficient and for getting on with the job. China, though, has a very long history of investment in Africa, right through West, Central, East and Southern Africa, and is a major player in terms of financing major developments across Africa from top to bottom. So China is still a major player in that region. It's a major off-taker of the resources that are developed by Australian and other companies, and it is a major source of finance for developing the infrastructure and the resources that Africa has. African governments understand that, and China is treated accordingly.
And a major investor. I'm just looking at Hang Lung and Sundance as well, major investor. Well, Rob Edel, thank you very much for joining us tonight.
It's a great pleasure, Tikki.